Today we're going to be cutting flare cut on a sterling silver cuff. Often when I'm cutting flare cut, I find it easier just to draw on the actual workpiece. It gives you a more immediacy, and also with flare cut, because it's so improvisational, and it can be so improvisational, your lines are there just to guide you, just to have a layout and give you a general guidance in the areas that you're going to cut, as far as like scroll goes and how you're going to lay in the backbone of the scrolls. But otherwise, flare cut is, like I said, very improvisational, and you can actually do a lot as you're cutting to change the design to make it more flashy or add some space or distance. So I find that flare cut's really fun to cut in that respect. You can see here I'm cutting backbone, and I'm using a 123 graver. It's the calligraphy template that's on Steve Lindsay's website. I find this particular point gives me a little bit more of an open V and allows for some of the reflective surface of the walls of the V cut to flash and add a little bit of flare over a 120, but not overwhelm the actual flare cut, because I like to kind of keep the scroll work and the backbone a little bit more, I would say a little bit more elegant, a little bit more thin, than to rather have a very fat and heavy backbone. I just think it looks a little better and gives the leaves a little more emphasis. So you can see basic scroll design to add in the base for what are going to be beautiful leaves that lay into the design and create a beautiful flared look. Silver is really fun to cut. It's soft, but unforgiving. One of the reasons is because if you're over pushing and your technique isn't correct, the graver can get away from you. So you have to control it a little bit more when you're cutting the silver. You don't have as much resistance. So it's critical that you allow the tool to do the work, that you allow your handpiece to drive the graver forward. And I'm coming in with a 45-degree 120 with a 15-degree heel. Keep in mind that all the surfaces that touch the sterling silver are highly polished to a mirror finish. This will ensure that the cut that is transferred into the silver is bright and reflective. Anything that is any flaw, any scratches that are on your cutting points, on your flat graver or on your V-cut graver, will transfer to the metal. It will create lines and just not a beautiful cut. It will create a dullness, scratchy surface on your cuts, and will just give you a lot of problems. So the more polished your gravers are, the better results you're going to get. Now, this particular style of flare cut comes from San Alfano's video. I find it very simple, quick, and very, like I said, and I will use this word more than once, improvisational. Flare cut can be looked at in that way, that you can, as you're cutting, kind of adjust leaves, adjust lengths of leaves to fill in space, to create more space. And in that respect, it's very fun to cut. I'm using each particular side of the edge of the flat graver to create the first cut of the leaf. What you're trying to do is create a peak in the middle where your left cut and your right cut are meeting. Not really overlapping, but just meeting at the point to create a peak down the middle of your leaf so that you have two sides that reflect light and they oppose each other. So no matter which way you turn your piece, or no matter which way the light source is coming from, you're going to have a reflective surface that bounces the light back to the eye. So you can see here I'm using the right side of the graver to create the first cut. These first few cuts around the origin point of the scroll, I'm kind of keeping them tight to create more of a, I would say like a more of an emphasis that is the origin point, and from there I want to stretch them out after these first few cuts. Once you add your first cut, the first part of your leaf, you can also add another bulb to your leaf, writing on the back of your leaf, just by adding a simple cut with the left side of your graver so that it abuts to the back side of your leaf. Very simple technique. Takes a little practice, but once you get the hang of it, it's very quick, very fun, very fast, and creates a beautiful effect. Tucking the start of every leaf back into the gap between the final leaf of the previous, so that it creates a flow off the backbone. I think that it looks better for your back cut, the cut on top of the leaf, to be a little bit wider than your first cut of the leaf. It gives it a little more of a, I don't know, a natural look. It seems like the flare cut, the majority of the flare cut is in the correct spot when you do it this way. And it allows you to have something for that second leaf to ride on top of, on the back of the other leaf. It just gives you a space there, a reflective space where that you can have some contrast there to create separation between those two leaves, so it doesn't blend in the eye as one thing. You'll see the little hook leaf that I cut there. It's very simple. It's very easy. You get the hang of something like that when you enter into the cut and you just kind of rotate your vise the opposite direction as you rotate your graver in the opposite direction, and make a thinner cut and just exit the metal. You guys can let me know in the comments if you want more tutorial-like videos. I've been thinking more of doing some actual tutorial type videos. So let me know in the comments if you want to see some more of that sort of stuff. Otherwise, I just kind of want to explain, you know, the actual basics of what I'm doing and let you see how I'm cutting things. Flare cut is fairly new to me. I've only been cutting it for probably half a year and using it on a few projects, but as I do more fine metal like silver, I find myself using this style because it offers more of a flash and flare and looks good when you're cutting jewelry, when you're doing things that are going to be worn as jewelry, like this cuff. As I'm coming to the end of the design, where things start to get smaller, I want to make sure that my space in the leaves becomes smaller and proportional to the design. As it scales down, so do my leaves and so do my cuts. So does the space between the cuts. So everything has a nice flow as it reaches the end. So here I'm kind of showing you how to turn that leaf out and create a tendril that leaves the main body of the leaf and kind of creates a little bit more of a flow, more of a kind of a beautiful finesse sort of cut that comes out. It gives it more of almost like the wind is blowing. The end of the leaf is just kind of flicking out towards the end of the design. I think it gives a nice effect. So now for the border. I chose to do something new this time. I've been following a few people on Instagram, a few jewelry engravers, and I've seen Florentine finishing, which is using a liner graver to create a textured surface on the surface of your jewelry. You see it on a lot of vintage jewelry like rings or pendants, cuffs even. The liner creates directional reflections, and so as you cut things in one direction and you look at it, the light reflects in a certain way. Now you'll see in a second that I go back and I do a crosshatch cut, and when you move the piece in light, it kind of gives it a flickering effect. It's very beautiful, very elegant, and relatively fast and simple to do. You just have to be careful not to cut into the actual design when you're cutting a border like this. Here you can see the crosshatch effect. I really enjoyed this project. I got to use some new techniques and try some new things, and I think it came out beautifully. So thank you for watching.